Hello, and welcome to another installment of There You Go with Bryan. Millie had always had a problem with the way her clothes fit. Why must everything be baggy, too long, or wrinkled? Sometimes her ill-fitting clothes would make it hard for her to do her job. Part of the problem was this was 1933, and make no mistake, it was most definitely a man's world Millie had decided to enter. She studied hard and worked tirelessly to climb the ladder of success in her chosen field, and eventually, after much sweat and toil, she reached the top. She was definitely a success. Millie was known around the world. And to think this little girl from Atchison, Kansas, who had always been a bit of a tomboy, had reached her dream before she was even 32 years old. Now, she finally had enough money and fame to finally address that age-old problem of why her clothes never quite fit. It was at this point Millie decided to take matters into her own hands. She drew up some plans, researched fabrics, and set up shop in a suite in the Hotel Seymour, in the heart of New York City. It's true, she had no formal training in fashion, but she knew what she liked, and she was willing to bet that other women would too. While so many people laughed and thought she was crazy for taking on such a challenge, Millie hired a team of seamstresses, bought a dozen sewing machines, and had the bolts of fabric delivered and set to work designing the clothes she had always wanted. She worked day and night. She drew up sketches, directed the fabric cutters, met with the retail store buyers, and traveled around the country promoting her new line of clothing. It was dubbed functional fashion, designed for women and made of materials that wouldn't wrinkle and were easy to care for. Stylish slacks for women in the workplace in 1933? Well, that was unheard of. Why, Millie even designed a line of clothing that could be purchased as separates. One size for the top, one size for the bottoms, all in one ensemble. She knew women would be more likely to buy these clothes if they fit better. Sleek, uncomplicated designs with ample sleeves and broad shoulders and trim waistlines. She was revolutionary in her use of zip-out linings for easy cleaning. Well, the day finally came to debut the new line of clothing. Critics and newspaper reporters came from all over to see just what Millie had come up with. And she was right. As a matter of fact, Millie's clothing line was picked up by Macy's department store, and before you knew it, everyone was talking about this new line of women's clothing, activewear, outdoor ensembles, spectator attire. Tailored suits and evening wear for women were also being designed. Well, the critics went wild, and the women around the country, they were thrilled. Soon Millie was known as the Queen of Sportswear. Her business was so successful that it even spawned a line of luggage, shoes, and purses. Her clothing line became so popular that at its height, no fewer than 5 production facilities were needed to meet the growing demand for this new approach to women's fashion. Millie had worked very hard, but there was a price to pay. You see, she worked herself to the point of exhaustion and ended up in the hospital. Her doctors told her that if she continued working this hard, there would most definitely be dire consequences. Millie's mother, upon visiting her daughter in the hospital, said that she had never seen her daughter this strained and emotionally drained at any other time in her life. Millie had to question herself as to why she had ever left her first profession to become a clothing designer. Well, that was it. It was over. After much thought, Millie decided to close her clothing line down and go back to her first love and the inspiration for her to have clothes that fit her well in the first place. Clothes that weren't designed for men, doing a man's job. Flying an airplane? That's right. The strong-willed little girl who was known as a tomboy from Atchison, Kansas, who grew up to create the first celebrity clothing line and one of the most successful clothing designers in history, was known to her family and friends as Millie, but the world and the aviation history books would remember her evermore as Amelia Earhart, the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean and the record holder for flying a helicopter higher than anyone, man or woman. 5 years later, after leaving the high-pressure world of women's fashion, Millie would disappear over the Pacific Ocean. She was chasing a new record for flying around the world. Instead, she was never to be seen again. But when you think of Amelia Earhart, the daredevil pilot who was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, perhaps you'll also remember a firebrand Manhattan couturier whose sense of style and practicality still echo through the world of women's fashion to this very day. Thank you so much for joining us for There You Go with Bryan. If you enjoy this channel, please consider supporting us by clicking the Venmo or Patreon link below. We always appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you next time on There You Go with Bryan.
Good day.